Aquaman star Jason Momoa has spent much of the past decade as a beloved celebrity, but it seems that many are starting to turn against the star as a result of numerous incidents that have occurred in recent years. Join Trender as Jason Momoa just crossed the line again. Jason Momoa doesn't respect the Sistine Chapel recently. Aquaman star Jason Momoa found himself the subject of ridicule as a result of some pictures that he had posted on social media. The incident occurred when the star was in Rome, Italy, shooting the latest entry in the Fast and Furious franchise. Jason was apparently incredibly enamored by the scenery of Rome and took particular interest in the Sistine Chapel. Things seemed innocent enough when the star posted some selfies of himself underneath Michelangelo's famous paintings that adorn the iconic chapel's ceiling and walls. However, many people started to question the pictures when they became aware of the fact that people aren't traditionally allowed to take pictures within the walls of the Sistine Chapel. While Jason Momoa had merely intended to show his love for the culture of Rome, he ended up doing quite the opposite. To many, Jason's Sistine Chapel selfies were taken as a sign of disrespect. Not only that, but this sign of disrespect was seen as just another in a long line of things that Jason Momoa had done over the course of the preceding years. That made it seem as if the Aquaman star might not be all that swell of a guy. Jason is currently in his 40s, but it seems that his pampered celebrity lifestyle has made it so that he's essentially a child at heart. Though this can be endearing on the screen, it's not quite as endearing when the star's childlike ignorance actually has real-life consequences on those around him. As it turns out, Jason Momoa had given a significant donation to the Sistine Chapel, which allowed him and some of his friends to have some private time within its walls. This is how Jason ended up being allowed to take pictures within the walls of the iconic chapel, even though tourists are traditionally prohibited from doing as such. This meant that Jason was well within his legal rights to take pictures within the Sistine Chapel and post them on his social media. However, the fact that Jason's significant monetary contribution to the chapel made him allowed to take pictures in it didn't especially help the actor's case with the numerous angry fans that were outraged by the display. Whether Jason had the money to afford it or not, the incident still suggests that the star likely didn't have the respect for the chapel he should have. Jason Momoa can't apologize without being weird. Jason took to social media to post an apology after learning about the controversy that had come about from his Sistine Chapel selfies. However, many view the apology video to be just as arrogant and ignorant as the selfies themselves. For whatever reason, Jason decided to film his apology video while he was in the midst of working out, which sent a confused message to fans. Either the star viewed the apology as such a joke that he couldn't be bothered to put his weights down, or he was attempting to hypnotize his legion of fans into forgiving him by forcing them to look at his lovely huge muscles. According to Jason Momoa, he meant no disrespect whatsoever by the Sistine Chapel selfies. In fact, his selfies were meant to pay respect to what he considered to be some of the most breathtaking art that he had ever seen. Jason was certainly greatly enamored by the Sistine Chapel and its artwork, as well as the whole of Rome. If this Sistine Chapel incident had been the first controversial thing that Jason Momoa had ever done, the public might have been more willing to forgive him. However, the incident was merely another in a long string of incidents, suggesting that Jason might be a little off. Jason Momoa loves raping beautiful women. Long before rising to the status of a superstar thanks to his titular lead role in the film Aquaman, Jason Momoa was a cast member of the popular HBO series Game of Thrones. Following Jason achieving superstar status, a clip of the star speaking during a Comic-Con panel was unearthed that painted the celebrity in a decidedly negative light. The clip was from 2011 and showed Jason discussing what he enjoyed most about his role on Game of Thrones. According to Jason Momoa himself, one of the best things about his role on the show was that he got the chance to rape lots of beautiful women. If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to hit the like button and show your support. Also, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be among the first to know when more awesome Trender videos are on their way. The consequences of Comic-Con. At the time that Jason Momoa made his controversial remark about enjoying the opportunity to rape beautiful women on Game of Thrones, there wasn't a whole lot of controversy that ensued. The other members of the panel seemed to be a little uncomfortable by Jason's remark, with the most obviously uncomfortable panel member being Lena Headey. However, Jason's remark had gotten a fairly positive reaction from the Comic-Con crowd. Jason's remark likely would have been completely forgotten if it wasn't for the fact that the star went on to achieve superstar status several years later. In between the time of Jason making the remark and him being cast as the titular lead in Aquaman, the Me Too movement had started. It was in full force when Jason made his debut as the character in 2017's Justice League. Around the time of Justice League's premiere is when the clip of the remark started making the rounds on social media, both as a result of the changing social climate and Jason Momoa's increased star status. The remark that he had made back in 2011 caused a great deal more controversy once the clip was unearthed, and started making the rounds many years later. Jason Momoa was quick to publicly apologize for the remark, claiming that he couldn't believe how insensitive he had been during the 2011 Comic-Con panel. According to Jason, he had seen the negative effects of rape firsthand amongst friends and family members, and he doesn't think rape is funny. Shortly after initially making his controversial Comic-Con remark, Jason Momoa elaborated on the subject of rape in Game of Thrones during a later 2011 interview. During this interview, Jason claimed that having to act out rape on the hit HBO show was never all that positive of an experience, and it was difficult for him to film sexually violent scenes with actresses that he was fond of in real life. When it comes to real-life romance, Jason Momoa is adamant that he is not a rapist and claims he prefers all of his romantic encounters to be completely consensual. Game of Thrones was always very rape-centric. Jason Momoa certainly isn't the only one who should be blamed for the massive amount of rape depicted in Game of Thrones. In fact, regardless of Jason's involvement in the hit HBO program, Game of Thrones has sparked similar controversy in the days since its premiere amongst concerned audience members who feel that the show might put a bit too much of an emphasis on sexual violence. Many feel that the staggering amounts of sexual violence depicted on premium cable series, such as Game of Thrones, is indicative of a problem much greater than just Jason Momoa. The unprecedented success of Game of Thrones suggested to many that there might be more of an audience for sexual violence than most would like to believe, which is certainly a troubling conclusion. Jason Momoa also pissed off PETA. Besides Jason Momoa's Sistine Chapel incident and his remarks regarding his chance to act out rape on Game of Thrones, the actor has also had a few other controversial moments over the course of his career that have helped put him in the hot water that he finds himself in today. In 2019, the actor caught the ire of PETA as a result of a fight scene that he filmed with a real-life bear for the streaming series See. Jason documented the behind-the-scenes minutiae of the fight scene on his social media, and he was especially excited to share a video of him feeding the real-life bear an Oreo cookie out of his mouth in preparation for the fight scene. Apparently, Jason had to feed the bear a cookie so that the bear could get used to the actor's scent. The incident could have gone terribly wrong, but it ended up working out just as planned. Jason got to film the fight scene, and it was apparently a pretty strong bonding experience between him and the 9-foot-tall animal. However, the fact that the experience was positive for Jason didn't help matters much when it came time for PETA to give their 2 cents. As one might imagine, PETA didn't view the incident very favorably and began attacking Jason. Jason Momoa is a Mel Gibson apologist. Thankfully, most of the public doesn't care about what PETA thinks. However, much of the public certainly does care about whether or not Jason Momoa is a Mel Gibson apologist. A year after the bear incident in 2020, Jason Momoa sparked even more controversy as a result of some selfies that he uploaded featuring himself alongside Hollywood legend Mel Gibson. When Jason looks at Mel Gibson, he simply sees an icon. However, when much of the public look at Mel Gibson, they see a drunk and xenophobic misogynist who deserves to be shunned from the entertainment industry permanently. While it was just one small incident, Jason's selfie with Mel Gibson added fuel to the fire of the public's growing hatred for the Aquaman star. The picture also featured Peter Dinklage, though he gets a free pass because he's short. Jason sides with Johnny Depp over Amber Heard. Jason Momoa's controversy likely makes it easy for him to relate to Aquaman co-star Amber Heard, who has recently become a public villain thanks to her legal battle with ex-husband Johnny Depp. However, Jason has once again surprised the public by seeming to side with Johnny instead of his female co-star. Given that everybody and their mother seems to agree that Amber was in the wrong, perhaps this is the right move for Jason. While Jason Momoa likely doesn't intend to keep stirring up controversy with his actions, the star's arrogance and ignorance keep getting in the way. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know that Jason Momoa angered PETA by feeding a bear an Oreo cookie out of his mouth? And that the star claimed that his favorite part of performing on Game of Thrones was that he got to act out his fantasy of raping beautiful women. As always, like this video to show your support and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to be among the first to know when more awesome Trender videos are on their way.